Welcome, brothers. It's occurred to me recently that the only men who can truly claim to be men's rights activists or advocates are fathers' rights campaign groups like Fathers for Justice, which was created here in the UK. Fathers for Justice have taken their rhetoric onto the streets and have done excellent work in bringing fathers' rights issues to the top of the social agenda. The rest of the so-called movement really is just a wine fest for every kind of sexually unfulfilled loser to sing the can't get laid blues. The overarching theme in most men's rights websites and YouTube channels purporting to advocate for men's rights is that if only women stopped choosing thugs, bad boys, losers, deadbeats and so on, and instead picked 9-to-5 wage slaves whose only outstanding quality is their mind-numbing averageness, women would be much happier. It's just another brand of man-blaming, only this time it's men blaming men instead of women blaming men. According to the thug-blaming script, there are bad men and there are good men, and women should pick the good men. The thing is, everybody thinks they're the good guy. The bad guy is every other guy. If you asked most so-called thugs or bad boys whether they see themselves as mistreaters of women, they'd probably tell you to go fuck yourself. And they could probably point out just as many examples of so-called respectable men who mistreat women and actually present themselves as the best option for women. Which is why men's rights movement has failed to catch on. There's just too many for whom men's rights simply means I have the right to more pussy than the next guy because I respect women. None of these so-called men's rights activists ever actually addresses a core men's rights issue. No, they just spend all their time whining about how educated or how nice guy or how good men they are and how they keep getting passed over for lesser, undeserving men. And that's what they call men's rights activism. Their only beef is that some guy they deem unfit for female company gets the girl. Well, my question is, what does it say about you if all the women in your social environment would rather date losers than you? If women are choosing losers over you, then what does that say about you? If you're competing for women against so-called thugs and bad boys, then I'd say that tells us a lot about you. It tells us that you're competing for women in the same social environment as thugs and bad boys. You are competing for the same pool of women as thugs and bad boys, which means you are proximate to them in terms of where you are in life. I mean, if for example you were an affluent man living in an affluent neighborhood, you'd be competing against other affluent men, and the thug issue would be a non-starter for you. So you're clearly not the prize catch you think you are. Now next we have the so-called whale of silence. Now if ever there was an exercise in abject lameness, the whale of silence beats them all. The term whale of silence, or rather wall of silence as it's being used by the crippled minds on YouTube, is supposed to refer to a policy of non-engagement with women who are hostile to men's rights. Now I strongly support the idea of a wall of silence. I don't think there's anything to be gained in discussion with women who are unsympathetic to men's issues. But far from ignoring these types of women, the idiots operating the so-called wall of silence devote an enormous amount of time and energy quarrelling with the exact same type of woman the whole thing was allegedly designed to shut out from the dialogue. That's why I call it the whale of silence. A bunch of emotional drag queens threatening women with something they have no intention of ever implementing. And that's no surprise, because if they stopped arguing with women, they'd have nothing to talk about. They're just wankers and pussy beggars singing the can't get laid blues. But aren't you using the same shaming language that feminists use to humiliate men who question feminist doctrines, Thugtician? No, I'm not trying to humiliate men who question feminist doctrines. I am telling pussy beggars about themselves, because pussy beggars don't question feminist doctrines. On the contrary, they endorse them. They validate the man bad, woman innocent depiction of male-female relations that feminists have invented, because it suits their state of mind and agenda, which is a pussy-begging agenda, i.e. making themselves look better to women than other men. If pussy beggars are not motivated by an inability to get laid, then why would a man who gets laid frequently and with variety give a damn about who women choose? It's evident that any man who persistently cries about who women choose is a hater whose only experience with women is as a distant spectator, not participator. A man who watches other men score while he himself is overlooked time and time again, which is how he comes to his bizarre conclusions about the causes of gender conflict. His cause is a personal one that has nothing to do with men's rights, and it serves the fucker right that he can't get laid. That's right, you can't get laid, you weak motherfucker. What kind of man hasn't got the basic pickup skills required to talk a woman into his bed, in a time and place when women are practically throwing themselves at men for just about any kind of sordid arrangement? But wait, I'm a nice guy. I don't want to take advantage of a woman. No, you just want to chain a woman to your side and make her your dependent so she can't get away, because you ain't got what it takes to keep a woman simply on the strength of personality, and you fear that unless she's changed you in some way, she'll run. And you're absolutely right, because you are a lame fuck. I mean, since when does being a good man or a nice guy equate to not being able to get laid? I mean, this is a kind of dumb logic that can only come from the mind of a pussy beggar. This is a kind of perverted weirdo we observe all over the internet. And these men are the ones feminists are talking about when they talk about abusive men and men who hurt women. If me saying all that is shaming language, what do you call it when pussy beggars blame other men for women's and society's problems? What kind of language is it when pussy beggars label other men as abusers of women? I call it pussy begging language, trying to make other men look bad so you can look good to women. Why don't my critics address that? Clearly the reason is you sympathize with that point of view, which means your claim to be a men's rights activist is seriously compromised. Pussy beggars and whale of silencers are sabotaging the men's rights movement, and I do not want to be confused with them. How can we press any men's rights agenda when so many men validate anti-male feminist propaganda? Feminists say men are violent, and pussy beggars say yes. Those men over there are violent to women, but I'm not like them. I'm a nice guy. I'm good to women. I respect women. And if women stopped choosing bad men, they'd have much better relationships with men. What kind of movement works with factions within the group blaming each other for causing the same problem society blames them for? No kind. So for me, the real opponents of men's rights are not women or feminists. It is the pussy beggars and the other miscellaneous weirdos who've adopted the mantle of men's rights to further their own petty agendas. So once again I say, Thugtician unleashed. I will use whatever resources become available to me to harass, humiliate, degrade and depress the pussy beggar horde. I will use my own prodigious power and ever-growing fame as the biggest men's rights name on YouTube to purge the men's rights movement of the scourge of pussy beggars, pussy beggarism and the phony whale of silence. Let me make it clear also that I have nothing to do with Sergeant Willie Fagboy, Solon Crack, or any clown associated with them. I have no respect whatsoever for Sergeant Willie Pete, and I never liked the bitch. Those calling for me to make peace with scum like that identify themselves as pussy beggars, and you can kiss off. Later.